Welcome to Mimir Library, where timeless stories find their voice. This is Chapter 11 of Waves Between Us by Amir Honarmand. Enjoy.
Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the open shutters of Totley mornings, casting long golden fingers across the weathered wooden floor. The day's heat had softened to a gentle warmth, and the scent of cooling gossamer mingled with the salt breeze drifting in from the sea. Alara moved between tables, collecting empty tea glasses that clinked softly against each other. 2 days had passed since her conversation with Mete, 2 days of careful distance from Liam, of smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes, of conversations limited to weather and coffee preferences. 4 days left until he departed. Celine hummed a popular Turkish pop song as she swept the deck, her movements unhurried. The last customers had left, leaving only traces of their presence: crumbs on plates, half-empty water glasses, napkins folded into impromptu origami. Alara paused by the window, watching the sea turn to liquid gold in the fading light. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, hair escaping its messy bun, the silver necklace catching the sun at her throat. A movement caught her eye. Liam stood on the deck, leaning against a weathered pillar, looking out at the horizon. His camera sat on the table beside him, untouched. The sight of him made something twist in her chest, a feeling both painful and precious. She filled 2 glasses with cold mint tea and stepped outside. The wooden boards creaked beneath her feet, announcing her presence. Liam turned, surprise flickering across his face. Alara held out a glass. "Thought you might want one?" "Thank you." His fingers brushed hers as he took the drink, the brief contact sending warmth up her arm. They stood side by side, watching the sea. Celine disappeared inside, her broom scraping against the threshold. The only sounds were the gentle lap of waves against the shore and the distant call of a seabird heading home. "Beautiful evening," Liam said, his voice soft. "The light is perfect this time of day," Alara replied, gesturing to his camera. "Not taking photos?" Liam shook his head. The deck creaked as he shifted his weight. Salt air moved through the rolled-up awning above them, making the canvas flutter softly. "The tourist season will be in full swing soon," Alara said, filling the silence. "Another month and you wouldn't recognize this place." "I'd like to see that." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning neither acknowledged. Alara sipped her tea, the cool mint a balm against the heat rising in her throat. Behind them, Celine stacked chairs, the metal legs scraping against wood. Liam's gaze remained on the horizon. "There's a village down the coast, Chirali." His voice was gentle, tentative. "Locals say it's magic. Sea, forest, and fire coming out of stone. I was going to go." He paused, turning to look at her. "But honestly, I don't want to go alone." Alara felt her breath catch. She sat in the chair beside him, her fingers tight around the cold glass. "How long do you want to stay there?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's about an hour drive. We could leave early, be back before the evening crowd. You want to photograph it?" Liam was quiet for a beat. "No," he said finally. "I want to see it. With you." The simple honesty in his voice made her heart ache. This wasn't a line, wasn't a ploy. It was an offering, a shared experience before goodbye. Alara leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. The sea hummed its eternal rhythm. The scent of burnt lemon peel from earlier prep lingered faintly in the air. A moment stretched between them, full of unspoken possibility. "Okay," she said finally, opening her eyes. Liam looked at her, his expression softening. He didn't thank her or celebrate the victory. He simply nodded, understanding the weight of her decision. "You've been carrying everything alone, even me." The observation startled her with its accuracy. Alara traced the condensation on her glass, watching droplets race down the side. "Maybe I just wanted something to carry that I chose," she admitted. Liam nodded, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. He didn't push for more, didn't try to fix or solve. He simply sat with her in the quiet acknowledgement of her truth. They finished their tea in companionable silence, as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in deepening shades of orange and pink. Not far away, the water lapped gently at the shore, each wave retreating only to return again. "I should finish closing," Alara said finally, standing. "What time tomorrow?" "Sunrise?" Liam suggested. "The light will be beautiful." Alara nodded, gathering their empty glasses. "Sunrise it is, then." As she turned to go, Liam spoke again. "Alara?" His voice was soft but clear. "Thank you." She paused, looking back at him. "For what?" she wanted to ask. For agreeing to go? For the tea? For these weeks that would soon be memory? Instead, she simply nodded and went inside, the screen door closing with a gentle thud behind her. That night, Alara lay awake in her apartment above the cafe, listening to the waves below. The window was open, letting in the salt breeze and the rhythmic sound of water meeting shore. She wasn't sure why she'd said yes. Maybe it was the stillness in his voice. Maybe it was the way the sunlight hit his hair and made him look like someone she hadn't already lost. Or maybe, just maybe, she was tired of being afraid of the fire. She turned off her bedside lamp. Dawn broke in ribbons of gold and rose as Alara slipped into Liam's rental car. She'd pulled her hair back in a loose ponytail, her face bare of makeup, feeling strangely vulnerable without her usual armor of cafe owner competence. The streets of Antalya were still drowsy, shuttered shops and empty sidewalks a stark contrast to their usual bustle. "Ready?" Liam asked, sliding into the driver's seat. His voice was morning rough, hair still damp from a shower. Alara nodded, hugging her small backpack to her chest. The car rolled forward, leaving the sleeping city behind. Liam switched on the radio, finding a station playing one of Kalbin's soulful melodies. The music filled the space between them, soft and melancholic. For the first 20 minutes, they barely spoke. Alara watched the landscape change through her window, urban sprawl giving way to rolling hills, glimpses of the Mediterranean appearing between rocky outcrops. The sea shifted colors with the rising sun, deep indigo to turquoise to sparkling sapphire. "So," Liam finally broke the silence, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth, "are you going to explain this volcano anxiety of yours?" Alara blinked. "What?" "Your adamant refusal to hike Yanartash before breakfast. I've never seen someone so firmly against morning volcanoes." The absurdity of it made her laugh, releasing some of the tension she'd been carrying since waking. "It's not a volcano. It's natural gas vents. And I just think eternal flames deserve a proper introduction, with a full stomach." "Fair enough." He grinned, passing her one of the travel mugs from the center console. "Coffee?" She accepted gratefully, wrapping her fingers around the warm container. The bitter scent rose with the steam, grounding her in the moment. "The sea looks different here," she observed, as they rounded a curve that revealed a spectacular coastal view. "Wilder somehow." Liam nodded, his eyes flicking between the road and the vista. "Reminds me of Galway mornings, before the fog lifts. Same feeling of possibility." He paused, though considerably warmer. They fell into comfortable silence again. The road curved along cliff sides, occasionally dipping close enough to the water that salt spray misted the windows. The scent of pine began to mingle with the sea air as they descended toward their destination. A citrus grove appeared on their right, the morning light catching on the fruit-heavy trees. Alara rolled down her window, letting in the sweet, sharp scent of oranges. "You ever just wish a road wouldn't end?" Liam asked, suddenly, his voice quiet beneath the music. Alara watched a hawk circle lazily above the distant hills. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but then I remember I have a cafe to open." Liam glanced at her, the morning light catching in his eyes. "Today, you don't." 3 simple words, yet they shifted something fundamental in the air between them. Today existed outside of time, outside of his departure countdown, outside her daily responsibilities. Today belonged only to them. Alara leaned back in her seat, letting her hand drift out the window to catch the rushing air. The road stretched before them, winding down to a hidden coast where flames burned eternally from stone. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the rising sun on her face, and something equally warm unfurling in her chest. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about what came next. The village of Chidali welcomed them with quiet, tree-lined streets and the distant murmur of the sea. Alara led the way, her sandals crunching on the gravel path that wound between wooden cottages and vibrant gardens. The scent of jasmine hung in the air, punctuated by the occasional tang of citrus. "My father used to say this place was caught between worlds," Alara said, brushing her fingers against a low-hanging orange tree branch. "Too beautiful for humans, too accessible for gods." They found a small restaurant with wooden tables set beneath a canopy of lemon trees. Checkered tablecloths fluttered in the gentle breeze, and an elderly woman with sun-weathered skin brought them fresh lamajun, topped with minced lamb and aromatic spices. "This reminds me of my grandmother's cooking," Liam said, breaking off a piece of the warm flatbread. "She lived in this tiny cottage by the sea, smelled like butter and peat smoke." Alara watched him, noticing how his eyes softened when he spoke of home. "Do you miss Ireland?" "Parts of it," he chewed thoughtfully. "The light there is different, softer, more forgiving, but it rains so much you start to forget what your own shadow looks like." She laughed, then grew serious. "Why did you leave?" Liam's fingers traced patterns in the condensation on his glass. "My father wanted me to take over the family business, practical work for practical people." His smile turned rueful. "I was never practical enough." "And now you chase beauty for a living." "I chase moments." His eyes met hers. "What about you? Did you always know you'd stay in one place?" Alara looked out toward the distant shoreline. "I left once, university in Istanbul. I thought I wanted something bigger, but the city felt like drowning." She tore off a piece of bread, rolling it between her fingers. "When I came home, I knew I'd never leave again." After lunch, they wandered down to the beach. The pebbled shore stretched empty before them, the Mediterranean lapping gently at its edge. Without warning, Liam kicked off his shoes and grabbed her hand. "Come on." He pulled her toward the waterline, his laughter infectious. Alara stumbled after him, protesting half-heartedly as the cool water splashed around their ankles. A larger wave caught them by surprise, soaking the hem of her dress and making her burst with laughter. "You're terrible," she gasped, bending to scoop up a smooth stone. She tossed it at the water, watching it plunk beneath the surface. Liam picked up his own stone, flicking his wrist with practiced ease. It skipped 4 times before disappearing. "Show off again," she muttered, trying and failing to replicate his technique. Here, he stood behind her, his chest warm against her back as he guided her arm. "Like this." The stone skipped twice before sinking. Alara turned in his arms, suddenly aware of how close they stood, water swirling around their calves. "I used to come here with my parents," she admitted quietly, "every summer until I was 16. I haven't been back since they moved inland." They found a flat rock warmed by the sun and stretched out to dry. Nearby, a loggerhead turtle made its slow, determined way across the sand. "The turtles have been nesting here for thousands of years," Alara said, watching its progress. "They always come back to the same beach." He turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "You know what scares me more than being left?" she continued, her voice barely audible above the gentle waves. "Feeling like none of it meant anything." "It means something to me." His hand found hers on the sun-warmed stone. "Even if I left tomorrow, I'd carry this place like a scar. You, like a tattoo." Salt dried on their skin as they lay side by side, the rhythm of the waves marking time. "I built my cafe to keep people in one place, to encourage them to come back again and again," Alara said, staring up at the endless blue sky. "You carry a lens to keep them at a distance." Liam was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but clear. "Maybe I was waiting for someone I wouldn't want to leave, for someone to pin me down and encourage me to come back again and again." The words settled between them, weighty as the stones beneath their backs. A child's laughter drifted from somewhere down the beach. The sea continued its eternal conversation with the shore. For once, the water didn't remind Alara of distance, but of rhythm, of continuity, of things that always return. The path to Olympos was dappled with afternoon sunlight filtering through tall pines. Alara navigated the familiar terrain. "Watch your step here," she called back to Liam, who followed a few paces behind, his camera hanging around his neck and taking photos. "The stones get slippery." The ruins emerged gradually from the surrounding forest, ancient walls half swallowed by vegetation, marble columns lying like fallen giants across the path. Crickets buzzed in the undergrowth, their song a constant backdrop to the occasional rustle of leaves in the sea breeze. Alara paused beside a weathered sarcophagus, its stone face etched with faded Greek letters. Vines curled possessively around its base, as if nature were slowly reclaiming this monument to human memory. "This is Captain Eudomos," she said, running her fingers lightly over the inscription. "A sea captain who sailed all over the Mediterranean." Her voice softened. "The inscription says, 'He reached the last harbor, never to leave again.'" She glanced at Liam, watching the words land. His eyes met hers, understanding flickering between them. "Romantic, right?" she asked. "And brutal," he replied softly, "like all good stories." They moved deeper into the ruins, past crumbling temples and forgotten marketplaces. Alara pointed out a temple dedicated to Marcus Aurelius, its columns now home to spiders and moss. A stray cat watched them from atop a fallen pediment, its tail flicking lazily in the heat. "Philosophers used to debate here," she said, gesturing to a stone-paved area. "Now it's just lizards and cats having territorial disputes." Liam laughed, the sound echoing off ancient walls. "History has a sense of humor." They reached the Akche stream that cut through the ruins, its clear water gurgling over smooth stones. Without hesitation, Alara stepped onto the first rock, balancing with ease. "Coming?" she challenged, already halfway across. Liam followed, less gracefully. His foot slipped on a mossy stone, arms windmilling as he nearly toppled into the shallow water. Alara's laughter bubbled up, bright and uninhibited, as she reached out to steady him. "You're like some forest nymph in disguise, perfectly at home while I stumble around like a tourist." "You are a tourist," she reminded him, but there was no bite to her words. "You know, I thought I'd show you Turkey. Instead, you keep showing me the world." Alara fell quiet, touched by the simple truth in his words. They reached the half-buried gate of an ancient theater, sunlight streaming through the stone archway. "I've never bring people here," she admitted. "I told you I haven't been here since I was 16. She paused, looking out at the ruins stretching before them. "I think after all these years, I wanted to see it through someone else's eyes for once." Liam raised his camera, capturing her standing in the archway, not posed, just existing in the moment. The click of the shutter was almost lost in the rustle of pine needles overhead. They found a collapsed column to sit on, the stone warm from the afternoon sun. Her foot brushed against his knee as they settled, and neither pulled away. "Sometimes I wonder if I could have been someone else," Alara said, watching dust motes dance in a shaft of sunlight. "A historian, a guide, not just a baker with nice coffee and wounds." Liam studied her profile, the way the dappled light played across her features. "You're already all of that. You're rooted. That's rarer than you think." He hesitated, then added, "And your wounds? They make the best stories." Their eyes met and held. There was no seduction in the moment, just understanding, deep and resonant as the ruins around them. As the afternoon waned, they began walking back toward the sea, their pace unhurried. His fingers grazed hers once, twice, before settling alongside her own. She let them linger there, a point of warmth in the cooling air. "Would you like to see Antalya tonight? The eternal flames are most beautiful after dark." Liam smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'd like that. I've never seen a fire that never goes out." As they made their way back toward the beach, with the shadows of ancient walls behind them and the sea opening wide ahead, Alara felt something shift, not in the ruins, but inside of herself. She no longer feared what they would become, only that they might never find out. The beach had emptied as evening approached, leaving only a handful of travelers gathered around a small fire in the distance. Alara and Liam sat side by side on the cool sand, watching as the sun sank toward the horizon, painting the sky in deepening shades of amber and rose. The Mediterranean stretched before them, its surface glittering with the day's last light. Neither spoke. Words seemed unnecessary now, after a day filled with ruins and revelations. The steady rhythm of waves against the shore provided all the conversation needed. Liam's hand rested on the sand between them, fingers absently tracing patterns. His pinky brushed against hers, once, twice. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let her hand settle against his, their fingers loosely intertwining. The breeze picked up, carrying the scent of salt and distant smoke from the traveler's fire. Alara shivered slightly and leaned into Liam's shoulder. His arm came around her, natural as breathing, and he pressed his lips to her hair. She turned her face toward his, their foreheads touching. His eyes searched hers, no longer the eyes of a stranger, but someone who had walked through ancient ruins with her, someone who had listened to her stories and shared his own. Alara closed the distance between them. This kiss wasn't tentative like their first. It was certain, a decision rather than a question. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone as he responded with equal certainty. They shifted toward each other, bodies realigning in the sand. Her fingers threaded through his hair, slightly coarse from salt air. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer. The kiss deepened, a conversation without words, punctuated by shared breath and the soft sound of waves meeting shore. When they finally pulled apart, Alara didn't retreat. She stayed close, her palm resting against his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her fingers. The clarity she felt wasn't about running or hiding. It was about presence, about choosing this moment fully. "I don't want to go back. Let's stay for a night here," she whispered, the words carrying more weight than their simplicity suggested. Liam blinked, surprise giving way to something deeper. "I'll find us a place. I believe we can find empty rooms around here," he said, his voice unsteady despite his smile. Alara shook her head slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "One is enough for us." The words hung between them, echoing with possibility. One night, one room, one memory, perhaps something more. She reached for her phone, scrolling to find Celine's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright with curiosity. "I'm not coming back tonight," Alara said, her voice steady despite Celine's immediate teasing. "Can you handle closing and opening tomorrow?" As she ended the call, the last sliver of sun disappeared beneath the horizon. Darkness settled around them, but Alara felt only warmth and the certainty of being exactly where she was meant to be. Dusk had fully settled over Chirali, painting the sky in deep indigo. Stars emerged one by one, bright pinpricks against the darkening canvas. The village center was alive with gentle evening sounds, distant laughter from a taverna, the clink of glasses, a guitar being strummed somewhere out of sight. Alara followed Liam toward a cluster of wooden bungalows nestled beneath ancient fig trees. Lanterns hung from low branches, casting pools of golden light across the packed earth path. The scent of charcoal grills and fresh mint tea drifted through the cooling air. An elderly man sat in a wicker chair outside the largest bungalow, his weathered face creasing into a smile as they approached. A radio beside him played traditional Turkish music, the melody carried on the evening breeze. "Let me handle this," Liam whispered, straightening his shoulders with mock seriousness. Alara bit back a smile, crossing her arms as Liam launched into what she could only describe as linguistic chaos. "Merhaba, we, istiyoruz oda bir gece için, bal mum?" His face scrunched with concentration. The old man's expression shifted from welcoming to utterly bewildered. He glanced at Alara, eyebrows raised in silent question. She couldn't contain her laughter any longer. It bubbled up from her chest, bright and uninhibited in the evening quiet. Stepping forward, she placed a hand on Liam's arm. "İyi akşamlar," she began, her Turkish flowing naturally. "Bir gecelik konaklama arıyoruz. Küçük bir bungalow varsa seviniriz." The conversation flowed easily between her and the owner. She gestured toward the bungalows, nodding occasionally, even bargaining down the price with a respectful but firm tone. Liam watched her, his expression softening with each word she spoke. The lantern light caught in her hair, turning the loose strands to copper and gold. When she laughed at something the old man said, Liam's smile deepened, reaching his eyes. The owner finally nodded, disappearing inside before returning with a key attached to a wooden tag. He pressed it into Alara's palm with both hands, saying something that made her cheeks flush slightly. "Teşekkür ederim." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. As they walked away, the metal key jangled softly between her fingers. Crickets chirped in the undergrowth, a rhythmic backdrop to their footsteps. "That was completely unfair," he said, his shoulder bumping playfully against hers. "I was about to say we're honeymooners." Alara snorted. "You were about to ask him if he's a bumblebee." Liam's laughter echoed through the trees. "I was close." "Not even remotely." She shook her head, the key warm in her palm. "He thinks we're very sweet, by the way. Asked if we were newlyweds." "What did you tell him?" "That we're still figuring it out." Their eyes met in the half-light. Something unspoken passed between them. Acknowledgement without pressure, possibility without promise. They turned back toward the beach, walking slowly. Their fingers brushed once, twice, before intertwining. The distant rush of waves mingled with night sounds, an owl's soft call, leaves rustling overhead, and their own matched footsteps on the path. The bungalow waited, its small porch light a beacon in the gathering darkness. But there was no rush now, no urgency, just the cooling earth beneath their feet, the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine, and the quiet certainty of choosing each other in this moment. Alara's heart was pounding as Liam closed the door behind them, the click seeming to echo in the quiet of the small bungalow. For a moment, they just stood there, eyes locked, the room bathed in the soft glow of the lantern and the fading light of the day. The air was heavy with the scent of wood, salt, and lavender, and the sounds of the night filtered in through the cracked window, the hush of the waves and the chirping of crickets. Then Liam moved towards her, and Alara felt her breath catch in her throat. There was no hesitation in his steps, no doubt in his eyes. He reached out and cupped her face with his hands, his thumbs brushing lightly over her cheekbones, and Alara leaned into his touch, her own hands coming up to rest on his chest. "You're so beautiful," Liam murmured, his voice low and rough with emotion. Inside and out. Alara swallowed hard, her heart fluttering at his words. "And you're so brave," she whispered back, her fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. "For coming here, for being willing to see things differently." Liam shook his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I'm not brave," he said softly. "I'm just drawn to beauty. And you, Alara Demir, are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And then he was kissing her, and Alara was kissing him back, and the world seemed to fall away. His lips were soft and urgent against hers, his hands sliding down to her waist, pulling her closer. She could feel the heat of his skin through the thin fabric of her dress, and she arched into him, wanting more. Clothes fell away in a tangle of limbs and whispered endearments. Liam's fingers brushed over the delicate skin of her back, tracing the curve of her spine, and Alara gasped, her head falling back as he pressed kisses to the hollow of her throat. They tumbled onto the bed, the mosquito net billowing around them like a gossamer curtain. Liam's hands roamed over her body, mapping every dip and curve, and Alara explored his in return, marveling at the strength and the grace of him. "Please," she whispered, her voice ragged with desire. "I need you, Liam." He pulled back slightly, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice soft but urgent. "Because once we start, I don't know if I can stop." "Stop," she said, her voice firm. "I don't want you to stop. I want you to love me, Liam. I want you to make me feel alive. If this is the last time, let it be everything," she murmured against his lips with a soft moan, a sound of consent. When he entered her, it was with a gentleness that brought tears to her eyes, and she clung to him, her nails digging into his shoulders as they moved together. There was no rush, no frenzy, just a slow, deep rhythm that felt as ancient as the sea outside and as new as the beating of their hearts. Liam whispered her name with love words like a prayer, and Alara echoed it back, a vow and a plea all at once. Later, when the rush had quieted and their breath slowed into silence, Alara lay tangled in the curve of Liam's body, her head on his chest, their fingers interlaced on the pillow between them. Outside, the sea murmured, and the fig trees whispered in the breeze. Inside, something more enduring than fire still burned, quiet, steady, and no longer afraid. Alara's heart was still racing as she lay tangled in Liam's arms, the soft glow of the lantern casting a warm light over their bare skin. She could feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her cheek, and she breathed in the scent of him, salt and sweat and something uniquely Liam. Outside, the night was alive with sound, the distant crash of waves on the shore, the chirping of crickets in the undergrowth, the soft hoot of an owl in the distance. But inside the bungalow, there was only the hush of their breathing and the occasional rustle of the mosquito net as the breeze filtered in through the open window. Liam's fingers traced idle patterns on her back, and Alara shivered, pressing closer to his side. She felt safe here, wrapped up in his arms, as if nothing in the world could touch her. But even as she savored the feeling, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. This was temporary, after all. Liam was only here for a short time, and then he would be gone, off to his next assignment, his next adventure. And Alara would be left behind to pick up the pieces of her heart and carry on with her life. But even as the thought pierced her, Alara pushed it away. She refused to let it taint this moment, this perfect slice of time where nothing else mattered but the feel of Liam's skin against hers and the knowledge that for now, they belonged to each other completely. So she let herself sink further into his embrace, let herself drink in the sensation of his lips brushing against her forehead, his breath warm on her hair. She traced the lines of his face with her fingertips, committing every detail to memory. The slope of his nose, the curve of his jaw, the way his eyelashes cast shadows on his cheeks when he closed his eyes. And when Liam kissed her again, slow, deep, and full of promise, Alara kissed him back with equal passion, pouring all of her hopes and dreams and fears into the press of her lips against his. Because even if this was only for a moment, even if it couldn't last, she wanted to make it count. She wanted to make it something worth remembering, worth holding on to long after the fire had burned out and the sea had retreated and they were nothing more than a memory to each other. So Alara kissed Liam like she was drowning, and he kissed her back like he was the only air he'd ever need. And for a little while, it was enough. It was everything.
The story ends here, but the library is always open. Subscribe for more free audiobooks.